you. I'm sorry, Sue. I'm really sorry, because I don't think any system, any way of life can claim any superiority or, claim to be the best way of life to actually organize society when so many thousands of women have to sell their bodies or sell sex in order to make a living.
Then that cannot be the case. You deal with the poverty.
That cannot be the case. And I think what this example shows is the nature of secular liberalism is that when there's a problem, it legalizes it. When there's a problem,
you're caused
by sexual freedom, which has resulted in a problem of prostitution and pornography, let's just legalize it. When there's a problem of drugs, let's just legalize it. When there's a breakdown of family structure from the fact that in the past when you had a mother and a father bringing up children in a warm, nurturing environment to a situation today as a result of sexual freedom where you have single parent families, you know what, there's no problem with that. Let's just accept it. It's a new family order. No, it's not. You cannot just legalize problems. You have to solve them. And you have to, the first step to solving them is understanding what causes these problems. And liberalism and secularism and capitalism have got a lot to answer in terms of the impact they've caused on women.
Okay, I wanted to ask the Islamic speaker. You mentioned about the problems which exist in the West, rape, abortion, family breakdowns, etc. If we look at majority Muslim countries, we see the stats for these things are much worse. Homosexuality, genital mutilation, etc. Yeah. So how would you explain this?
I don't know if you can say it's much worse. I don't have the statistics for Muslim countries, but you're right, it's a big problem in these countries. Even in terms of Egypt, I was reading recently, sexual harassment in Egypt and in Bangladesh is a serious problem. Last year, 18 girls killed themselves because of the sexual harassment that happens in Bangladesh on a continuous level. Why? Why does this problem exist? It's a mixture of issues. One is traditional views of women that debase and devalue women. Anything that devalues women can cause this kind of violence or abuse of women. But secondly, look at these countries, Egypt, Bangladesh. Bangladesh has allowed a Bollywood culture to come into it. A Bollywood culture that is based upon Hollywood, based upon the kind of lifestyle, the love, the romance, the culture, the liberal values, which has affected the mindset of the youth. And the consequence you can see on the streets, isn't it, of these countries. Similarly, in terms of Egypt, the Arab dramas that you get there. So it's a mixture of many things, and the most important thing is that the regimes in these countries have allowed it and have legalized it, have licensed it. And that is why women in the Muslim world are saying enough. We want change. We don't want to live under this situation. There is a better way of life. There has to be a better way of life. Look at Tunisia. The West classified Tunisia as a model of women's rights. Can you imagine? Muslim women, we don't want crumbs when Allah gives us gold. This is what we want to achieve in our countries, and the Islamic Khilafah state can achieve this.
Yeah, sister.
You commented earlier on two things that I wanted to just go over. One was one that someone else had pointed out earlier. You were saying that prostitution is legal in Britain. You have to sort of provide people involvement that will protect you. But I think there's a lot of ways, like when you're saying, and someone else has pointed out as well, that when perhaps a lot of the things that the West legalizes is not things that first resort society as a whole agrees with. I don't think it's sort of they are legalizing it, or they would like us to say, well, those people are involved in prostitution, let it happen. But I don't think if it's such a, if you like, if it's such an advantage or something that's very big in price for everyone to be involved in, I don't think any liberal or secular parents or fathers would like their daughters and their aunties and I don't know anyone else who are their female family members to be involved in prostitution, and whether there is protection for it or not. So it's sort of not on my doorstep, but let me sort of provide you with, I don't know, legalized brothels or something like that. So I think it's not good for the West. I mean, in general, it's not good for the secular or liberal systems to legalize things that they themselves wouldn't like to be part of society. And another thing as a whole, I think...
So, sister, could you just wrap it up?
I'll just sort of... a lot of it seems to be... because the debate is titled why... does Islam oppress women? It seems to be actually that it's gone on to why secularism good and why is sort of secularism bad. It hasn't really gone back to women. And I would like perhaps someone about the
Okay, yeah, thank you. Alright, thanks. Good read. I'm actually going to take a few questions at a time.
I want to go back on
yeah, you will. I've written it down. Don't worry. Yep. Yeah.
Or can you make it on prostitution?
The question I'd like to ask is to Sue. It's about the issue of enlightened self-interest. You gave that as a definition that we should basically have a system where you can legislate based on enlightened self-interest. But as your own example has given, I think a lot of people supported you when they thought that you were saying prostitution should be outlawed until it became clear that your view is that it should be legalized. Other people would say from the same secular basis that it should be outlawed completely. So the question is, what defines that enlightened self-interest you're talking about? I mean, to give a quote from Baroness Hale, she said that every attempt that the law has made to make the process of divorce easier and try and reconcile the issue of the family, the problems that result in families, each of those measures has actually led to an increase in the divorce rate. So it kind of shows that it's all very well talking about how we'll follow enlightened self-interest, but the legislation itself is sometimes the cause of the problem. So the real question is, what should be the basis of the legislation? What's the basis upon which we talk about interest? Is it a secular basis, where you kind of try and fight and try and fix the problems that your own legislation causes? Or is it an agreed rational basis, i.e. the Islamic way of life that the sister is putting forward?
Thank you. And yep.
My question for Sue, I wanted to ask you that France is a country that says that it's a very liberal society, and with liberal, I think everyone here will agree that that's freedom of choice, freedom of following what you believe in. But recently they banned the niqab, and in 2004 they banned the hijab in public places. Would you not say that's oppression of women under a liberal society? Because in the media you'll see they're constantly telling us that we are trying to establish a secular state, we're trying to be a liberal state, but they have gone back on their words and they have oppressed the Muslim women themselves by banning them from what they would like to wear. And another question I'd like to ask you,
This is what happens when you
do you really think that we can get freedom and equality at the same time? Because is that possible to get both freedom and both equality?
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask you, has anybody else got any comments specifically on prostitution? Because there's absolutely no point in taking questions on a whole range of subjects. I can't possibly go into the sort of detail that is necessary to
Two of them are actually linked.
Useful.
Okay, so can we actually answer the question?
Right. Anybody else on prostitution?
No. Sorry. You've actually already asked the question.
I've already asked the question. If I can be so bold as to say what I believe to be the view of secularists, atheists, rationalists, humanists on sexuality, it is that all forms of adult sexuality that is consensual, that is between adult people with their consent, not their dependency, with no coercion, that's fine. Now, if they choose the conditions on which they do that sex, in whatever way you care to take it, no problem. The converse of that is that all consensual sex is wrong. Full stop. Illegal. Criminal. Right? Now that is my base starting point. Now, if you take that as far as prostitution is concerned, any woman who is a prostitute because she thinks she has to, if she would rather have a couple of regular customers, right, instead of going out in the early hours of the morning, cleaning offices in London, while her children have to get themselves up in the morning, if she would rather do that, then that is her choice.
All right, Sue, sorry, I think it's very clear what your stance is on prostitution, but let's move on to the next two, which was the what defines enlightened self-interest, and the what was it? What should be the basis of legislation?
Sorry?
Yeah, that's the third one.
Freedom of what?
No, that was the third one.
Enlightened self-interest means you think about a problem and you look at the effect it has. Now, again, if you take this on either prostitution or homosexuality, both of which have been, and in some cases still are, illegal, and that illegality means that those people are vulnerable to coercion and blackmail and not being able to protect themselves, and you do not address the problems, and you do not rescind the illegality, you are driving those problems. You are not addressing the problems and stopping them. And don't get the idea that prostitution and rape and all the other coercive sexuality has been invented by secularists. It has existed for millennia. And don't tell me either that Muslim men do not take part in this activity, because I don't believe you.
Okay, so you haven't actually answered the question. It was what should be the basis of legislation, and I'll throw in the third question, which was hold on. The third question was about France, where they banned the niqab. Surely that is oppression under a liberal society. So if you could answer both of those very, very quickly, because we're running out of time. Enlightened
self-interest is that you address the problems in society, and you do it on the basis of evidence and rational thinking, not on a society in which the Parliament does not reflect. The largest minority of people in this country are atheists. There are, I would say, less than 30 people in the House of Commons who would admit to being secularists or atheists. And we have bishops, as of right, sitting in our legislature, 24 of them. Therefore, no reason other than that they are bishops of the Church of England. So don't come to me and tell me you think this is a secular society. We have a divinely appointed monarchy. Our anthem is God Save the Queen, which offends me on both counts.
Okay, and I'll just let Dr. Nasri come back to that.
A couple of points. First of all, I agree with Sue, the fact that secularism has not created the exploitation of women, but secular capitalism has marketed it.